Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by Jane Roder. She's a sex therapist. She's an author, internationally accredited author, counselor, relationships counselor. She's got so many different qualifications. You can look on her website. They're all there. She's Reiki, reads cards, which I find also very, very interesting. She's got many hats, obviously, and she's an awesome person, and I just happened to find her by chance, and I'm really grateful that she took she accepted my offer to come on today, and looking forward to sharing her story, and then hopefully some awesome tangents in terms of love, sex, relationships, porn, all this information for us young people and for anyone out there. It's invaluable, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we come up with today and Jane's story. So without any further ado, Jane, I'd love the listeners to hear for you to share your story, and yeah, let's rock and roll. So,
what would you like to ask me first? Like how I got into my work, or my general spiritual, my journey from when I was young to where I am now. Just
we could do that. Yeah,
fast track.
Yeah, all right. We can go from where you were to where you are now, and
I'll cut it down, because as you know, we've all got a big story, and when you're my age, you've got a bigger story, right? So I'll just quickly, I was always a child that asked questions like, I'm a why, but why? You know, I remember going to Sunday school, to church back then, and I'd go, but why? Jesus wouldn't have done that, but why would Jesus do that? I don't think that, like I was a pain in the ass to, I think, to my parents and everyone. So I went to a lot of different, remember, the personal development wasn't around when I was young, right? It sort of, it probably was in that much, but we weren't aware of it. So I went to lots of different churches and listened to things, and I thought, nah, that doesn't make sense. And then I did believe in God, though. I had a sense that there was a God or a higher power, and that Jesus was some awesome man, right? That had a lot of amazing teachings. I had this sense of that. But I went off and sort of became sort of a bit of a, I left it all. I became an exchange student. This is an interesting one in my study. I was an exchange student when I was 16 to Canada for 12 months. And that was like doing a year of family therapy when I look back, because what happened was I stayed with a different family every month. So I was observing all the different ways that families were functioning, and mothers and fathers were functioning, and what I thought worked and what didn't work. So that was an interesting part of my journey. But my spiritual stuff had been left behind. But then I ended up going to uni, and I studied art, but I also studied psychology and sociology. I was really fascinated in all of that. And I also, if I look back, I think I was a very self-centered, as we often are when we're teenagers. It was all about me. And as my mother would say, my mother's still alive, that my generation was the me generation, the start of the me generation. And question rebellious to authority and all of that. Now, I go to uni, I left uni, then I decided with my boyfriend to travel. No, I didn't. I went without him first for 6 months. I traveled to Europe, around the world by myself. So I was always very courageous too. Got on a plane, no mobile phone, nothing. I got on a plane by myself as a 21-year-old girl, and traveled around the world to America, Canada, then went to Europe. Anyway, But it was during that time that my brother was killed, which I told you about before. My brother was killed in a motorbike accident. So I left in the January. In October, he was killed. And when I think back, I had a weird feeling when I left. I had a really weird feeling which I couldn't understand. And so my brother was 18, I was 21. And so he was the only son in the family, which made it more tragic. And so because back then there were no mobile phones and computers and everything, if you were traveling the world, you got letters from post offices. That's only, like major cities pick up a letter. So I had this feeling about 9 days before or 7 days before I was having weird dreams. I had a weird feeling that I had to go to the post office sooner than I was going to. And sooner than I was going to. So I was having weird dreams of rocks falling down and disturbing dreams. And I got to the post office and I had a telegram. My brother had been killed and he was buried. I'd missed the funeral. So as you imagine, you scream, you cry. It was tragic. It was the only son in the family. It was tragic. And I didn't get to say goodbye to him. And so I didn't know what to do. What do you do? Mum and Dad are at home and I wasn't there. And so I rang and I said, what do you want me to do? And my dad said, we'd like you to come home. Could you come home? For a few weeks, I'll pay for the airfare and you can go back. Now, when I went on the plane home, the clouds, I had that was a mystical experience, the most mystical experience where I knew God. I felt God. I knew God. I looked out the window of that plane and the cloud formations, the colors, it was extraordinary. It was like God was shining and saying, I'm here for you, And there was a song called, do you know a song? It's a beautiful song. I think it's by Chicago or America, called If You Leave Me Now, You Take Away the Biggest Part of Me. You ever heard that song? It's a beautiful
song. I
song.
haven't. I just got a dog barking, but no, I haven't heard that song. I might have to listen to it. Put a link to it down the bottom in the description box.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that was playing as I was watching these
You want the inquiries?
cloud formation. Hang on.
I'll just pause record.
Yes, so this song was playing. I'm watching the clouds. I'm feeling this connection to God or a higher power, something amazing. And my brother's just died. So I'm sitting there. I went into my why questions because I'm a why question. I'm a kid that asks questions, right? Always have been, still am. So I asked, so who am I? I asked, I wonder, who am I really? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What's my purpose here? Why did my brother die? What's the purpose of life? I asked these questions. Well, I said to myself, I'm going to answer these questions. I made a vow to myself that I was going to answer these questions at 21. Now, as you would know, most people will die and they won't have answered those questions. Most people die with the music inside of them, with a lack of purpose, or it's just an unlived life for many people. So I guess that was a very big spiritual experience. And then I had another time when I was on a train later on, I went back over to Europe. I was going to Paris on a train and I just felt God again, the connection of all things on a hot night in this train. It was just amazing. So I went to some very deep places. And I'll tell you what was really interesting. I've never told my parents this, is that around the time that my brother died, this is really weird. It could have been the same day, who knows? But I nearly died.
Oh my God.
We were up in the Swiss Alps and it started snowing, and we were in this van, and it was a little road, and the pass got closed, and we were behind a log truck. We could have slipped down these. You imagine in the big Alps, and the roads weren't like they are now, and we were petrified. So I had this sense, it was like God was trying to take one of my parents' children. Another thing that happened to me while I was traveling before my boyfriend came over and traveled with me, that I was nearly raped and murdered in Paris.
Shit.
And I was nearly raped and not necessarily murdered, but I was in danger in America. So those things happened all around the same time as my brother died. It's very weird. And you know what? Later on, I never told my parents that, but my mother said once, this is an extraordinary story, makes me want to cry, but she said once, I said to your father after your brother, David, his name was, David died, that we used to pray for you because you were so far away, but we didn't pray for the children at home.
Oh, wow.
And I wondered if that's what protected me.
Well, the power of prayer.
I don't know. Or I was the one that was, I don't know, there was something in me that was supposed to survive and he didn't, because I had a bigger job to do in the world. He had finished his purpose. That's how I see it. He'd finished his purpose, and I believe one of the reasons why he died was for me to do what I do.
Yeah, he's guiding you.
Not only that, is that because I went on this journey to work out those questions, I do the work that I do now. And I've made a difference to thousands of people's lives. So it's a bit like Jesus. I'm not a born-again Christian or a big Christian or anything. I'm a spiritual person. But it's like it's through Jesus' death that a lot of people in the Christian world, they'll say they've been saved, that they've found peace in their life. And and the other interesting thing is with purpose. So that took me on to my purpose. I'll get to that in a minute. But my father, the interesting thing is my father they're still alive, my parents, in their 90s, would you believe? But my father was a funeral director. So, and I've spoken to my parents around this, my father's brother was killed in an accident when he was 21.
Oh, wow.
Then he's had his son died at 18, and his father died at 61 of leukemia as well. So he was young when he had a lot of loss in his life. And as I said to Dad, that would have made you a more compassionate funeral director, because you know what death's like. Like you were young when you went into funeral directing, So it's like my journey has been understanding sexuality and relationships and our boundaries and love and, forgiveness and compassion. And but purpose it's all coming home to all of that, but we're all born with a greater purpose. All of us. We've all got a greater purpose. And until we find that, we're going to feel like we're a bit lost at sea. We might be doing a job and doing a good job or whatever, but we're all born with some purpose that is unique to us.
I agree. That's so powerful. I feel a lot of people right now have lost their purpose, or they don't know what it is. And that's the work we do, isn't it? To help
Yeah.
people find their purpose in life again.
And ground them and believe in themselves and
Yes.
connect back into this greater source, which is God or a higher power or the spiritual realms, because we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Correct.
We're a soul. So anyway, so I got married. So if we go on to the story, I then got married really young. I came home from Europe, got married really young. It's not a good thing to admit, but because I'm a person that loves freedom and experiencing life, and I felt like I was in jail when I got married. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But I do believe I was carrying some of my mother's stuff around that.
Yeah. Well, we all do.
We all do, right?
Yeah.
My mother's beliefs and how she felt in marriage. I took that on. And even though my father was a really wonderful man, but that generation felt trapped a lot, women. Anyway, so I married a really good man, had 2 beautiful sons. I've got 2 beautiful, successful. I've got a 20 out of 10 relationship with them. They're both married. They both got 2 little kids, and I've got a 20 out of 10 relationship with my daughter-in-laws.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I would, out of all my work, yes, I've done lots, written books, done this amazing stuff, had amazing life, but my greatest success is my sons.
That's awesome. You should be so proud of yourself, Jane. That's so cool.
So, but because I hadn't answered the questions when I was 20, why am I here? What's my purpose? And okay, when I was 28, when I was married, after I had my first son, I got really sick. And I had a breakdown, like depression, not depression, but like anxiety, panic attacks. I had a whole breakdown. It took me a few years to get better from that. And that was when I stumbled across, because I was wise enough to know that I didn't want to take drugs, that drugs would be a Band-Aid. I didn't want to take tablets. And that I knew that I was 100% responsible for what had happened. There was something in me that let go. So I've lost my train of thought. Something about, that was when I stumbled across Wayne Dyer's. This was when personal development books started to really come out, and I stumbled across his book, Your Erroneous Zones, which is his first book.
Yeah.
And I read that and I thought, oh my God, my brain's really screwed up. And I saw how I was carrying a lot of stuff from my mother too, because my mother used to worry about everything. And I was a worrier. That's why I collapsed. I worried about everything. What's the point of worrying? Anyway, that book changed me a lot, and I went on. I healed myself through relaxation techniques, body techniques, and reading about the mind, rewiring my brain, meditating. But it was hard. I'd sometimes feel like I could conquer the world, but then I would collapse into a hole again. It was a struggle to do the housework. It was really interesting. But that trough got less and less. And after a few years, I healed myself, but it was totally without drugs. And then because I went on this big journey, I grew a lot. And I became more empowered, and I changed a lot. So I sort of grew differently to my husband, who's an atheist.
No. Yeah.
And he couldn't understand. But anyway, the bottom line is I decided I wanted to leave the marriage, and I was losing the plot in the marriage. I wasn't behaving very well. I wanted to go out and party, and that was my midlife crisis. But it was not about me. I needed to find and answer these questions, right? So then I leave the marriage, and I actually went to a clairvoyant, and she said to me, "You're going to be writing a lot of books." I hadn't retrained myself yet into counseling and psychotherapy, and I'd read books, but I hadn't retrained myself. And she said, "You're going to be writing books," and that's all I remember. I remember leaving that woman, and I thought she was crazy. I thought she doesn't know. She's not a very good psychic. I'll never write books. I remember thinking that. Yeah. English was not, reading and English was not my best subject. And so then I'm divorced, and I go out and I become a single woman, right? And I'm meeting couples who are divorced, and they're complaining about their ex and their kids, and they're whinging and moaning, and they're in the courts, and this is happening and that's happening. I'm thinking, what is the matter with these people? Because we had created an amicable separation and divorce without the courts. And with the kids, the money, everything. We'd done it really from a higher perspective. It's not about what I can get, what you can get. It's about how can we do this in a way that's going to be for the highest of all. So then that's when then all of a sudden I wanted to write a book about divorce, right? How to create a successful separation and divorce. So I started writing that, and then I retrained myself in counselling and psychotherapy, and then I started did a little bit of coaching, and I was just fiddling around and did a lot of courses. I did the tarot course. I did lots of alternative courses as well. I was going NLP and seminars and all sorts of things. But one of the things that I did, theta healing. Oh my God, there were so many courses I did, learning kinesiology, how our beliefs get stuck in the body. Yep. It was just, I was like this, like you, like a sponge. I couldn't get enough of everything. I just wanted, and it was so interesting. But one of the things that I found was probably the most extraordinary. Some people boo-hoo it a bit, and in fact, in France, it was banned, which I think is a really good sign, is like in Australia, Money and You was a workshop that was banned. You wouldn't know that.
No, I wouldn't. I don't know. Wow.
And that was a really, really powerful course, and Australia banned it. Four Corners got hold of it and banned it. Landmark was banned in France, but it remained in most places around the world. It's a worldwide education. Now that was, or it still is in Melbourne, but since COVID, they've had to do things offline. So they can't do in-person stuff, which is not as good, I don't believe, with seminars. I mean, you'll get good benefit out of it, but their education is extraordinary. It's like a life university. And apart from doing spiritual work and other work, I tapped in and out of that probably for 12 years.
Wow.
They had lots of courses on sexuality, on relationships, on everything. But it's a transformational education. So you get really good distinctions in life, and it's based on Zen. Oh, they'd hate me saying this, but this is my story anyway. It's based on a lot of Zen Buddhism, mixed in with how to win friends and influence people sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of like that. Bit like, I guess, Anthony Robbins, but different, you know. You know, in courses, you know, seminars like Anthony Robbins. I did Harv Ekers seminars, like you name it. I think I've done a lot of it. I also did communication. What's the famous communication course? Anyway, so a Landmark is considered a communication course in a lot of ways. So that was very influential, which is what I got my boys to do as well when they were around 20. I also, as my boys were growing up, I was also playing self-development back in those days with the cassette tapes in the car. Remember them?
Yep.
So rather than playing music while they were in the car, I was taking them to school or whatever, I was playing those. And my youngest son remembers that it had a big effect on him. And I gave them like Anthony Robbins books. I encouraged my boys in those areas when they were young. My eldest son was a bit lost, you know, when he was about 21. He was really lost.
Yeah.
And without me knowing, he actually went to the doctor, and the doctor, listen to this, the doctor said he was depressed. And
oh my God.
I went into his bedroom and saw these, you know, he'd obviously left them out so I would see them, right? And I went crazy and I said, "You are not depressed. Who said you were depressed? You just need to write down your goals. Read Anthony Robbins' book. You love reading. Write down your goals. Let's write down your goals. You'll be amazed at what will happen. You know, write down everything that you want. And by writing them down, you're putting out an intention to the universe. You're putting out this intention. You watch how miracles will start to happen and you'll feel better." Anyway, he did it. And you wouldn't believe it. I remember going in there probably 6 months or 12 months later. Most of those things had happened. And he was a slow starter with a girlfriend, right? My youngest son was onto the girls really early on, but my oldest son was more timid in that area. But one of the things he wrote down that he wanted to have a girlfriend. Guess what? He got a girlfriend.
Wow.
So I probably did my best mothering between the age of, my boys were like 11 to 22. Because I know that's the time boys and girls can really go off track.
Very much so.
And I also talked to them about the dangers of drugs and with schizophrenia and psychosis, because their father's cousin was, he was diagnosed later in life. He was about 35, I think. He was a really handsome, gorgeous guy. Women loved him. But when he was about 35, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. It was a bit too late, and psychosis. But, you know, I assert, it can't be proved, but I believe it was because he was smoking a lot of pot early on, a lot of marijuana, or whatever else he was doing. And he committed suicide when he was 40 because,
wow.
You know, so I told my boys around about that. You know, please, that could be, you could have that weakness in your brain, you know. It might be in the family, a weakness in the brain that you could gets a psychosis if you fiddle around with drugs. So I sort of hammered that into them as well. And it wasn't until they were older that I talked about pornography, because I became aware of the dangers of that when the internet got going more. So, and if I tell, because you work with young people, but I want to tell you the story about my my youngest son. He's a very conscious soul. And when he was, I had to laugh. This is before, no, it might have been, he probably had been listening to tapes in the car by this stage. He was about 12. And he got his first mobile phone, right? Remember in those days you had a screensaver?
Yeah, yep.
You remember?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Because he's how old's he now? How old are you?
28.
So he's 36, I think. Yeah? 36, right? So he's older than you. But
Yep.
the screensaver, but I remember picking up his phone. I had to laugh. I picked up his phone on the kitchen bench, and on his screensaver, he had "Chicks Dig Me."
Chicks dig me.
That's what he did. That was his screen. Talk about put it out to the universe and manifest it.
Yeah.
And in his bedroom,
That's unreal.
he had a bedroom by himself, not with his brother, but it was like his whole, even from the age of probably 11, his whole bedroom were all these posters of these gorgeous girls.
Oh, no.
Right? So he was manifesting girls.
Yeah.
Guess what he did? He did. Chicks loved him.
I did the same thing.
Did you?
Yeah, I
Did
didn't have a poster and room full of girls, but like I can relate to that.
But my eldest son didn't. He had cars on the wall, right? He was more interested in cars, and he was a car freak, right?
Yeah.
So he was a slow starter. So he was having trouble, sort of didn't know what to do with his girlfriend stuff. Anyway, so then, so what all this led me to was, I had times where because I originally started as a high school teacher too. That's what I originally did. And I didn't do that for very long because I didn't like it. But I was innately, I am born a teacher. I am a teacher, right? So my teaching went into, so then my journey learning about love, relationships, and how life works. So my teaching went into that in a sense. So, so how did you asked me before we started, like, what allowed me to become successful? I was quite a while where I had to do part-time work, and I was teaching at a university. I was teaching communication, which was good, and I was just on contract work. So I used to go off track. I used to not teach the curriculum a lot of the time. I would teach all the quantum physics and, self-belief, because to be able to communicate, you have to, believe in yourself. And I teach them all that.
Actual stuff that they need to learn.
The real stuff they need to know, not like tick the box things that they need to know. And I was prepared to get the sack for that. I didn't care, right? And plus I was on contract, you know what I mean? So I didn't have to do exactly what they said as much. So that was how I transitioned into being full-time. And I'll go back to how I was in my purpose all along. But now, see, I say my mission is to bridge the growing gap that's occurring between men and women, and to create more conscious, loving relationships in the world. That's my mission. But what happened when I started doing coaching / counseling, I was doing anxiety, I was doing a bit of this, I was doing some seminars, you know, for single people. I was doing lots of different types of things. And I was doing marketing courses and business courses, and, you know, as we do. And, you know, the old marketing philosophy where they say deep and narrow marketing. You've got to go deep and narrow, right? And I'm thinking, well, maybe this will help my business if I go deep and narrow and concentrate on one thing. But I'm a generalist and I love everything. And I didn't know. I felt like I was good at lots of different things, and I didn't know what I should specialize in. And I'd think and I'd think and I'd think, and I couldn't get the answer, and I procrastinated about it. Anyway, so talk about my spiritual beliefs. I then decided, okay, I'm going to ask God, ask the universe. You talk about this, Jane, ask the universe. Mind you, I need to tell you, I got the answer to, well, I did tell you why my brother died. That was the answer, you know, for me to do the work I did. So I put it out. I said a prayer. I just had a talk to God. And I said, okay, God. Now, when you do this, you've got to have extreme faith. If you have any doubt, it won't work. Even a little bit of doubt, this won't work. I said, okay, God. I'm confused. I know I'm really good at serving you in a lot of different areas, but I think I need to concentrate on one thing. I'm being told I need to go deep and narrow, which will give me more abundance, you know, in my life where I can serve you full time. I don't know what to choose. I don't know what area to choose. What I ask that if you, I want you to give me the answer, please, in a way that I can feel it, know it, hear it, that it's tangible, that I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to leave it to you. That's what I did. Had extreme faith. And about 3 days later, someone rang me on the phone and asked me, did I do couples counselling?
Oh, wow.
And I'd never had that on my, you know, on my websites or anything. Because in my mind, I didn't want to do that, right? And I decided to say yes to whatever turned up. I said, yes, I do couples counselling. I said, I'll ring you back. So I sat down and I thought, okay. And I go, okay, God, you think I can do couples counselling? Yes, I can do couples counselling. I've been married. I've been single. I know about relationships. I'm into sexuality. I understand. I've taught sexuality. Right. So I sat down and I made up a program for couples. And I invited them in and got feedback on what I did. But I didn't tell them I hadn't done it, right? And they gave me a glowing testimonial. They were so happy. But you wouldn't believe it. From that day, the phone has never stopped ringing from couples. And I incorporate sexuality in my work around couples. But it's not just, and it's occasionally I'll get singles too, but not a lot. or young guys around porn addiction or whatever I'll get, like quite a lot of that. So that was how my deep in marketing began. And that was only about 6 years ago, 8 years ago. I can't even remember when it was, but I'd been doing all this stuff beforehand. You know what I mean? But I was able to create greater abundance. There was a higher demand for it, and people were willing to pay more money, and they were in more pain.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
So that was my journey to, and then I got a lot of reviews, a lot of good reviews, 5-star reviews. I got people, they're honest reviews, to do reviews of my work. And then on Google, that made a big difference. And, you know, I've continued to go out speaking, and I have great faith. And I also put it out there that the right clients, spiritually, the clients that are in alignment with my teachings and will get the most benefit from me will come to me, and vice versa, that they're in alignment. So, and occasionally I'll say to somebody, I don't think we're the right fit, or they might say the same thing to me. But most of the time that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome story, and you should be so proud of yourself of how far you've come and what you've built, and that's so cool.
Yes, and I've written this book.
That one caught, when I was looking up on you, that one caught my eye, 101 Ways to Win a Woman's Heart, and then the sex one too.
You can read this in about 40 minutes. It's a real.
I reckon I would.
It's a quick flick. I mean, it should be 1,001 ways.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that book that somebody wrote that said 1,000 ways to understand a woman, or something like that is the title, right? And it's this really thick book, and you open up and all the pages are blank.
Oh, that's a good one.
You gotta laugh.
Yeah.
Because we're so different, like, as you know, men and women are so different. We've got the same needs. We need to belong. We need to feel loved. We need shelter. We need to have a higher purpose. We need connection. We need significance. We need safety and security. We need uncertainty. We've got all those same needs, but we're different biologically. Our brains are different. We're wired different. And for this, you know, this thing about that men and women are the same is absolute rubbish. You know, you watch little boys and girls, you know, most of the time, not all the time, but the little girls want to play dress up and look pretty, and, you know, they want to do girly stuff, and the boys want to with the cars and bash stuff and guns and ride around on their bikes. And we're meant to be different. We complement each other. We're not meant to be the same. And, you know, and what I will say that that generally, this is generally, but generally, you know, this is what I teach with my couples, is that generally men need to be complimented on what they do.
Spot on.
Whereas women need to be heard. They need to know that a man has heard them and has listened. So that's a generalization, but that's a big difference between men and women. And unfortunately, girls today are really scary to boys and to men. They're really scary because they're so masculine, and they're taking on roles. They've lost their sacred feminine, empowered sacred feminine, and they're chasing after boys. They're watching porn. They're walking around looking like porn stars, and
Yeah.
it's
I know.
it's sad. I mean, it's sad, and then the boys are scared and they've become weaker, and
The attack on males, yeah.
the attack on masculinity
Yeah.
through porn and through advertising. They give more, they empower the girls on television, and particularly the white male, as we know. He's like the toxic male, but they don't talk about the toxic female, do they? Women can kill guys with their mouth.
Yeah.
It's just as bad as hitting a woman almost. We can destroy people with words, and mothers have hit their children dreadfully and treated their children dreadfully. Women have got a lot to answer to, but nobody wants to talk about that.
No, they don't.
And it's put on the men, and both men and women need to grow. Women need to grow into their empowered feminine, and the men need to grow into their authentic masculine, empowered masculine. But the problem in our society, the boys learning how to be a boy, how to be masculine, is all about drinking, doing drugs. This is like, I'm going to be tough. I'll watch porn, and I'll share all the porn videos around with my mates. Hey, look at this.
Yep.
Look at her. What about this? Check this.
While they're smoking and vaping and gambling.
Yeah, doing drugs or let's ask. I'll send a dick pic.
Yeah, on Snapchat.
Or I'll ask one of the girls at school to.
Yeah, I know.
It's frightening. It's frightening. We've lost the sacredness of sex, and it's become sleazy.
Technology and TV have a lot to answer for in this as well, because they're programming people to do this.
Absolutely. And in the past, you think about it, before television and before the internet, guys used to look at a few girly magazines or whatever.
Yeah, like Playboy and that, yeah.
Right? And you could say, well, what's the difference between the internet and television? It's because there's all these narratives of...
Yes.
It's the narratives. It's like you've got to have a lot of sex to be happy.
Yep.
You've got to have a lot of different partners to be happy.
Yep.
You've got to, the more porn you watch, the more you jerk yourself off, the happier you'll be, the more it's the more girls you can conquer, the more you can get into bed, you'll be able to brag about it to your mates, and honestly, and people are suffering so much from depression and shame, and people got these dirty secrets, these dirty little secrets, these teenagers are carrying from teenage years, and shame of some of the things they've done that they haven't really addressed, and the girls, they think they've got to be like a porn star to be loved and to be liked by the boys.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
And they've got to give the boys the head job, or the anal sex or whatever. There's an increase in girls, young girls admitted into hospital with anal issues, because they think it's like you can just have anal sex and it's normal, you know, and it's going to be okay. You can play around with that, you know. It's and then you've got the little children stumbling across porn on iPads, and there's an increase in little children play acting with sex which is very problematic. You know, when I went to the US earlier, I went to the US unvaxxed, mind you, 12 months ago.
Beautiful. Love that.
I needed to share with Djokovic how to do it. Anyway, so but when I was over there, because my youngest son lives over there now, he works in the startup in a startup company, and he married an American girl. So I go over there every year as much as I can. But, you know, I was playing tennis over there one day, and there were other women I was playing tennis with. And I heard one of these women say, they were laughing about it, that one of it was somebody they knew. They heard the story that a little girl who was 5, one of the boys that was around that age or a bit older had asked her to sit on his face.
Oh, wow.
Right? And these women were laughing about it. I said, that's not funny.
No, it's not.
I said, that is so serious. And see, people don't realise. They sort of think this won't happen. My kids wouldn't be doing that. Oh, my little 11-year-old boy wouldn't be watching porn. Oh, no, he's in his room playing games. Now, the other thing with boys is, as you know, the demise of boys is gaming. They play games all the time, and then they stumble on porn, and there's also more violence in the games too. And so there's a generation of boys that can't communicate.
Yes, there is.
And they don't know how to relate to anybody. And they're depressed. They've got no self-worth. And
it's sad.
We've got to stop this.
Agreed.
You know? It's got to be stopped. And what I have faith in is that the structures are going to be pulled down.
Yep.
Because before all great civilizations fall, and we're at the point where it's like the fall of Rome. Before great civilizations fall, there's gluttony, which is greed with food. Look at all the chef shows and everything. There's sexual decadence. We've got sexual decadence overboard. And we have a big gap between the rich and the poor. We also have a high lot of immigration, which happens before empires collapse. And hedonism. You know what hedonism is?
Yeah, I think I do.
Like narcissism. It's all about me. You look on Instagram and, you know, people, oh, look at me. And
got my ass out in a bikini.
And look at my muscles and look at the food I'm eating.
Got my ass out in a bikini. Yeah.
And, look at me. And
yeah.
So we've got all the signs that
they're there.
So I believe it's going to happen very shortly, that all the structures are going to fall. Big Pharma is going to fall, medicine, the schools.
They're falling now.
They are slowly falling now. And I believe big tech will be taken over and we'll have some sort of quantum computer instead. Quantum phones where they can get rid of all this stuff it's like a cancer on our society, and the purpose of it, which
Well,
we
it
haven't
causes
spoken.
cancer in our society.
That's right.
Yeah.
And depression, anxiety, suicide. Look at the suicide rate. Look at anorexia in girls, because
Yeah.
they think they've got to look like the porn girls, and they're pushing girls to be really thin, and so that, and as we know, this is a depopulation agenda. They don't realize, the young people don't realize the plan is to destroy marriage, to destroy our ability to be able to have relationships, to destroy masculinity, because if they destroy men, they're the ones that protect our society.
Correct.
So if you just undermine them and take their power away, we haven't got a strong society. We haven't got strong heads of families and protectors of the women. So, and a lot of the girls that are in porn are sex trafficked, and boys and men don't realise that. Are you right?
Yeah, no, I'm right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
No, they don't realise that.
That they're being sex trafficked. So actually, by watching porn, you are complicit in that industry. And that's a really good thing to remember, to give it up. You're being complicit in sex trafficking. And women have never been so sexualized ever in the history since time began. And and girls are playing into it. They think it's like, oh, we're liberated females. We can do a porn video with our boyfriend, and look at us. And this is what freedom is. This is what being
start an OnlyFans or whatever it is now. Monetize it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we've lost our way. I want to read this out. Can I read this quote?
Absolutely.
I love this. Now, this is a great book for boys to read. Is Manhood by Steve Bitoff. It's an old one, but I really recommend it to guys to read. He's an activist, an author, and a psychologist.
Yeah.
He's an Australian guy.
Oh, okay.
He's not too, I don't know whether he's very active. He's older now. I don't know what he's doing. I need to check him out. But listen to this quote. Sex will either be a sleazy and obsessive part of your life or a sacred and powerful source of your well-being. There isn't anything in between.
That's awesome.
Isn't that amazing?
It's so true though, isn't it?
And another great book guys can read is a famous book called Think and Grow Rich. Have you read that?
No, but I've had it recommended to me twice now, so I'm
there you
thinking I should
go.
go and get it.
That's there's a message from your angels.
I think there is.
To go and read it, because he does, because that was one of the first personal development books ever written. I think it was about 1938 or something.
Yeah, okay.
He was so ahead of his time, and like the main theme through the book, well, one of the main themes is if you can't get your sexuality under control, you'll never be successful in life. And he does a whole chapter on the transmutation of sexual energy. I gave that to my youngest son because he was in sales and, he's in communication. He was diving more into this stuff than my eldest son. He did some of this, but not as much as my oldest son. He loved that book. I learned a lot about it, and ended up training people in sales and taught them some of this too. He was teaching. So here's another one. Napoleon Hill, his name is, the Think and Grow Rich. This is what he says. Sexual energy is the creative energy of all genii. The energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of genius. Isn't that
awesome.
amazing?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And another one. This is from Napoleon Hill, amongst the greatest and most powerful of stimuli is the urge for sex. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting men into the higher sphere of thought, which enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyances which beset their pathway on a lower plane.
That's awesome. That's so powerful.
And one that he wrote, another one. I want to give you another one from David Dada, who's if you read any of David Dada books?
No, I haven't. No.
There's a great book. I'm telling you this because having sons, my youngest son, and I recommend this to younger men in particular, but all men, but younger men love it. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. It's a shorter book.
Yeah.
By David Dada, and he's a spiritual, sexual teacher and transformation teacher of masculinity and femininity and all that, feminine consciousness. This is what he wrote. Without a conscious life purpose, a man is totally lost, drifting, adapting to events rather than creating events. Wow. Without knowing his life purpose, a man lives a weakened, impotent existence, perhaps eventually becoming sexually impotent or prone to mechanical or disinterested sex. There you go.
That's awesome. That's an awesome takeaway for anyone listening out there. That's really powerful stuff.
And also the ancient teachers. How long have we been going for?
Going for a while.
Tell me if
we'll wrap it up soon.
Okay. So the ancient teachers of sexuality also taught in Taoism and the Taoists and Taoist and like tantric masters from India, and China, they taught that the less a man masturbates, the less he ejaculates, the more power he has. And to bring his sexual energy up, it's like the more power. It's the opposite that's being taught in our society today.
Yep.
That he'll be a better lover. He will be a better man. He will have greater self-esteem. He will be better at his work. He will radiate. He will radiate. Women will be attracted to him because they'll feel his power. Now, men aren't taught that.
No, I wasn't taught that.
Right? There's some of this magic, but you've got to learn it. Because otherwise, sex is body-based. It's not emotionally and spiritually based. You have a triangle with sex. You have the lower levels, which is body-based. It's physical. And then you have, like, porn's lower-based. Normal genital sex is body-based. It's like you've got to move it up into the heart and make it a gift and transmute it. It's a gift. It's a gift of God. It's a gift for healing. It's a gift for being successful. It's a gift for it gives many benefits. And it's not to be squandered because it's the greatest gift that God has given us because it's where babies are born. And if we play around and misuse it, there's karma attached to that.
Yep.
People suffer. But anyway, there's lots of lessons to be learned around love, relationships, and sex.
I could talk to you all day.
There's lots of lessons, but is there anything else you would like to ask me?
I think we've covered everything. I'd love to get you back on for part 2, really, because usually my podcasts go for about 45 to an hour, but this has been such an awesome conversation. Like, it's gone for a while.
How long have we gone for?
Probably an hour and a half now. But
no, I'm sorry.
If anyone's gonna, no, it's fine. If anyone's no, if it resonates with people, they'll watch and listen to it anyway. But I have to get you back on for part 2, and we can really delve into some of this stuff. This is thank you for coming on. Like, awesome conversation. But I do ask my guests as like a last question, if if any of that resonates with people and they're stuck and they're lonely and they're frustrated, they're sexually lost, they're physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually lost, like they're just lost and frustrated, what would be your advice for those people to start their journey in healing?
Is actually they need, first thing is to admit you need help.
Yeah, big one.
You can call me or call you, right?
Yeah, pick up the phone, that's it.
Pick up the phone to somebody, get an appointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to unlock your stories that you sit in your head that are in the way and rewire your brain.
That's the work I do.
Yeah. So that's one thing that you do, but you've got to figure out the trauma and the stories, because the people that get really addicted to porn, what I find, is trauma there from their childhood, and there's a huge fear of intimacy. So it's delving in and figuring out where that's come from. And I can do that really quickly. I don't take a long time because I believe I do fast quantum work, but it's like you do, but it's and it's having the guts to just go on the journey.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's liberating. It's you'll be amazed at, and in the old days you'd sit and you'd go through this stuff for months and months, and now there's fast ways of doing things. We're in an incredible time in history. You can get fast results. As you told me earlier, what you've done in 3 years is mind-blowing. And I saw that with my son at 21 or 22, he was, from the time he did a couple of landmark courses, he read some books, he'd listened to a few things, read a book. He was a totally different person, changed his job, stopped drinking, moved in different friendship groups. He'd written a book, unbelievable. So
it can be so quick.
Everybody can do it.
They can.
And, he was off track. He was drinking and he was off track,
So was I. I was a human mess.
Right? And we've all can go off track. But there's laws of the universe. There's laws of life. There's laws that make life work. And when you know them, it's magic. Anyway, I want to thank you very much and love the work that you're doing. And you're an extraordinary young guy. Keep up the good work, and God, you'll be amazing by the time you're 40.
Oh, thank you. I'm only 12 years away. Thanks for coming on, Jane.
Imagine what you'll be doing by the time you're 40.
Hopefully you have about 75,000 bush schools worldwide. That would be my...
Is that your dream?
Oh, bush schools, and have all this stuff taught in schools again, like going back to getting kids in touch with nature and letting them learn about the spirituality and all the things that we aren't taught.
Yeah, you might get that done within a few years, the way everything's going fast.
Well, yeah, I might. It'd be nice.
Anything's possible. So
thanks for jumping on, Jane. That was an awesome chat. And to anyone out there, I'll put a link to Jane's website in the bottom. Is there any way people can contact you other than your website?
So they can text me on my phone. I'm happy to give them a phone number, or email me.
Oh, I'll probably just do the email. I don't put your phone number on there.
You can do Jane@janeroder.com, RODER.com.
Beautiful. We'll put a link to your email on the bottom and your website. I don't think you have social media, do you? People can follow you on social media?
I got kicked off for 2.5 years. I did a really good job.
Oh, okay.
No, for nearly 3 years.
Right, we'll put your email.
See you.
We'll put your website and email on the bottom, and that was an awesome chat. So to anyone out there, please reach out and ask for help. So I'll see you guys real soon. So thank you.